Hi guys, how you going? Campbell here from Autodidactic Channel. Hope you're all having a spectacular day. Welcome to 2021. We're definitely going to make this one a lot better than 2020. It's time to take back control. We can all see what's going on. But this video isn't about that. This video is more about what has happened in the past. And today I wanted to have a look at my own town, Perth, West Australia, which has a really interesting story because Perth is a later city. Perth was founded 1829, July 1829, July 12th, I think, is when it was found. And the story is they basically came up the river, the Swan River, and there was nothing here. It was just bushland, nothing. They did not know where the clay was. They didn't know where the lime was to make cement. They didn't have any industry. Of course, there were lots of trees, but they didn't have lumber mills. They didn't necessarily have, they would have had to bring all their saws, all their machinery, circular saws, milling equipment in just to get the trees milled. And that would have taken quite a while because when they founded Perth, it wasn't with thousands and thousands of people. It was with a couple of hundred. And as you can see, Perth was founded in 1829, largely because the British feared the French would establish a colony in Western Australia. In 1827, Captain James Stirling sailed to the Swan River in his ship HMAS Success. Stirling believed the area would be ideal for a settlement. He persuaded the British government to found a colony there, independent of the colony in New South Wales. Perth was named after the birthplace of Sir George Murray, who was British Secretary of State for the colonies when the city was founded in 1829. However, Murray was not actually born in the town of Perth. He was born in Perthshire. So there you go. However, this colony was not to be manned by the convicts. Instead, the government would sell land cheaply to private citizens, ignoring the indigenous Australians who lived there, of course. The first ship to arrive in the Swan River estuary was HMAS Challenger, captained by Charles Fremantle, after which our port city is named. On the 2nd of May 1829, he claimed the whole of Australia outside of New South Wales for Britain. Nice. Pity that the people living here already didn't have a say in that. Stirling arrived in June. He ran the new colony by the Swan River from 1829 to 1832 and from 34 to 38. So basically, yeah, they just rocked up, 1829, and they didn't have any people, and as you read, they didn't have convicts. They didn't actually get convicts in Western Australia and until the 1850s. So they did, bring them in. And it says here the new colony developed on two sites. Port town was Fremantle. Perth itself was founded August 21. Oh, I've got a different date for that, but it was 1829 to mark the event. A tree was cut down on the site of Kings Park. Of course, when you're going to found something, you may as well kill some nature. Soon there was a conflict between the European settlers and the indigenous Australians, of course, who were then driven off their land and many of them killed. The same story we get all around the world with this, colonisation. And that word, colonisation, it's not really a mammalian word, is it? I mean, what mammals colonise? Apart from some strange humans, insects colonize. They're the ones that go in and take over other people's, land and everything. It's not this whole, war and colonization stuff of humans is definitely imposed on us. It's a story that's been put up there, and it's complete BS because we all know we don't feel this way. We don't want to act this way, and we don't know anyone else who wants to do this, who wants to go out and just colonize someone else's land. Humans are much, we're creators. We'd much rather hang around and build something rather than go and steal it. But there we go. Bit of digression. So yeah, today we are going to have a look at Perth. So that's just a brief history. I really want to look at the Swan Brewery in Perth. So let's jump into it. Okay, the Old Swan Brewery. Now this is quite a landmark in Perth. It was very famous. Well, it's always been famous. It used to have lights on it, and then when Alan Bond won the America's Cup in 1983, he actually owned the Old Swan Brewery. He owned, well, the Swan Brewery as it was called, and it sort of came back into the spotlight as it was sort of dilapidated for a while before then. But let's have a read of the story. The former Swan Brewery is not only one of the finest groups of brewery buildings in Australia, it is also a site which caused controversy over whether European or Aboriginal heritage was more important at the location. That's to do with in the 80s when they were going to redevelop it. Basically there's a Aboriginal legend of the Woggle, which is a snake that lives in the Swan River, and the site was supposed to be associated with it, so there was a bit of controversy, but of course no one listened to the natives in the end. They just went ahead and did what they wanted to do. So it says the first buildings at the Swan Brewery were erected in 1838. 1838, so let's remember, they turned up on the banks of the Swan River just 9 years earlier with nothing. And now they're building, you'll see what this thing looks like, for timber cutting and flour grinding. The first stream-driven mills in Western Australia, they were later taken over as a convict depot in 1850. That's when the first convicts came in. So they're saying for 12 years. Now, you've got to imagine, back if you're starting a colony, if you've got a timber mill and a flour mill, they would be fairly essential. But they just shut them down and throw convicts in there, as you do. The buildings were subsequently used as a tannery, and at one time contained a restaurant used by travellers between Perth and Fremantle. It was this site that in 1877 was acquired by the Swan Brewery Company. The brewery buildings constructed from 1879 on the Swan River foreshore beneath Mount Eliza became one of Perth's dominant landmarks. So there we go. Brief history of the Swan Brewery. And here we go now. I've got some pictures. This is a little small, but you can see this is not a small building. That's the whole complex. Obviously, it's quite a few buildings. And that's it, right on the water. And at the bottom of this is King's Park at the back here, which is obviously a very big hill. I can see some stairs going up there. This is a map. This is 1859, I believe. No, 1895. There you go. So you can see, I mean, that's obviously a bit later, but there's some very big buildings there. And it's the same story. It's basically, they just moved in and it was just this building that just got erected when there was no industry around, and then it just, changed. As they always do, they start off as something, then they change their role and change their role and change their role and end up as something completely different. So we're told this was a timber mill in 1838. Okay, so the timber industry in Western Australia. I have searched for the Swan Brewery being a timber mill and found nothing, basically, at all. What I've found is the earliest timber production in Perth is in Jarrahdale, which is south of Perth. Today it's about an hour's drive, so you can imagine it would have been, a day or two, I guess, in a horse and buggy carrying lots of wood. And it says here, early interest in the timber industry had not been commercially viable because of the limitations imposed by short-term timber licenses. However, in the late 1860s, Governor Weld was to stimulate the establishment and growth of an important timber industry in the state by granting long-term leases or concessions. A group of investors in Victoria, including the Wanless brothers, William and Thomas, were to be granted a 100,000-acre timber concession in June 1871. The Jarrahdale Station Syndicate came into being with a land lease stretching from Byford in the north, which is Perth basically, south of Perth, to North Dandalup in the south. Oh my gosh, that's a huge area. And east to most of the Canning River watershed. So basically, again, they had no timber industry, so the government just gave away all the land, no doubt to people from certain families, and they got to own the timber industry. But the question is, it says here that there were short-term licenses, because of course to cut a tree down you've got to pay the government, right? Especially if you're trying to build a house or something. But it says here there was no industry. There's just no mention of this timber industry that they say was run in the Swan Brewery. But the other question is, quite clearly, that building has got a lot of wood in it. Where did all the wood come from? Yes, it was built 1839. I mean, come on, that's 32 years before they established a timber industry. And that is far from the only big building that was around, before 1871, definitely. Now, the other thing that the Swan Brewery is made of is bricks. Right? Bricks, again, Perth, they rock up, they don't even know where the clay is. Let alone, do they have clay factories, refineries. So this is Clackline. Now, Clackline is probably 3 hours drive from Perth, 2.5 maybe, something like that. Clackline Refractory is located at Refractory Road in Clackline. And the history says the fine quality clay was discovered in the Clackline area in 1898. Okay, so end of the century, and basically they started the company in 1900. All right, 61 years after they used all those bricks to build, at least, the old Swan Brewery. And I also have here this is the other oldest brickworks I could find from Perth, and this one's not even as old, Maylands, and this one says 1927. So, and we also have Midland Brick here as well. And Midland Brick, this is the largest brick manufacturer in Perth at the moment, but this is a later again, 1946. So, where's all the brick coming from? All the red brick. And just, I have been thinking, well, let's have a look at a few pics first, and I'll show you what I'm talking about. This one, not very good quality. Unfortunately, it was a very small picture. It's pretty old. I'm not sure what the year is. It's got the sepia tone look. Probably the turn of the century now. Notice these are swans. These are black swans. Now, the swans are on the river here because this river used to be fresh water. Okay, so I'm thinking this has probably got something to do. This is the brewery in the background. So that used to be on a freshwater river. And this is a big river. It used to actually have a natural limestone wall out at Fremantle where the port is, and it acted as a filter, and it kept the river freshwater and kept the salt on the ocean side, the salt water on the other side. And that's why it's called the Swan River, because when they first turned up, this river was covered in black swans. Now you find them in a couple of little pockets, like little coves where it's probably not as salty, but they've pretty much moved out of the river and into our lake system. We have lots of lakes. This is Perth, Western Australia in the 1860s. Again, so this is 21 years, 32 years, sorry, after it was founded. Now you can see here, it looks like they've cut down some trees. But I mean, that's not a huge amount of trees to build the buildings that we're looking at. Now, this picture, you'll see here, actually it just says, oh, okay, from a clay pit as well. So they've even found a bit of clay there. But obviously it wasn't big enough to make a clay works because it's not even mentioned. But we can see, a bit of stuff going on here. Looks like a 2-story brick building. And the Swan Brewery is actually on the other side of this bend. So it is still, yeah, this is not like a pre-photo or anything. Now this this is the first brewery, they're saying. This is before they turned the Swan Brewery into a brewery. And of course, look at this mud flutter. Nice old building up here. And of course, you build breweries like this. But yeah, this is before Swan Brewery. So, I mean, what are we talking as dates there? I think that, 1830s. And look how built out this is. It's like the whole street is built out. So I just had a quick look into this Lion Brewery and when it was started. And it's part of a conglomerate that have breweries all across Australia, apparently. And if we come down here, 1857, early West Australian settler Frederick Sherwood establishes the original Swan Brewery in what is now the suburb of Sherwood Court in Perth. Swan Draft is born. Now that's 1857. Now if we come across to Swan Brewery on Wikipedia, it says here the brewery was established in 1857 by Frederick Sherwood. There is a good line in here that says Sherwood inherited a successful building firm from his father Richard in 1831. Successful building firm. The colony is 3 years old. So that's very successful indeed. But basically you come down here and there's no real mention. It does say that the first, that it was Lions Brewery first and then Swan Brewery, but it doesn't tell you anywhere when the first Lions Brewery was. All I can find is this picture, and that's 1857, but that's saying that's when it was changed to Swan Brewery. So how long? Yeah, so I'm not sure how old this brewery was, is what I'm trying to say. I'm thinking it would have to be at least 10 years prior to that, so at least 1847, but probably, 1837, 1840, something like that. Which, even even if you go 10 years back to 1847, that's only, 20 years, not even 20 years after colonisation. So that doesn't make any sense at all either. Because look at these buildings.
Yeah, we called it a bullshit.
Silly. So, the story of Perth is ridiculous. Now, this photo, I don't have a date, but this is Perth. This is obviously early. Look at this building. It's huge. It's completely flooded out. Perth City is pretty much on a slope. We've got, not steep hills like San Francisco, but all the streets are kind of like this. So all the buildings are flooded like that on that angle. But look at this whole, you've got their flag up there already, but, got the windows in the roof, got the portals, got all this stuff. And next to it, this is what they can build. Something with, a chimney from the reclaimed red brick, which is something, again, you see everywhere, especially in Australia. Wooden houses with big red brick chimneys. So where's the red brick? Is that just what they found lying around? But yeah, look at, it's just complete mud roads. How's this horse and cart even getting up that dirt road? But they've built this. Hardly anything around. There would be more around, but yeah, I haven't seen that photo. Don't know what that building is. I'm pretty sure it's gone. This is another brewery. So this is Fremantle. South Fremantle. Well, yeah, it's just South Fremantle in Perth, Western Australia. There's now a big bridge going over here, and this is an old brewery. In this photograph above, the old Castlemaine Brewery stands in the centre, built in 1898. Now look at the brick in this, 1, 2, 3, 4 stories, built the year they discovered the clay, 2 years before they started, before they opened the brick factories. So good job, guys. That's not even mentioning all this construction, all these houses in the background, and another big 2-story building. This is now a pub. This is called the Left Bank. This is unfortunately gone. The shed on the left housed the Swan Yacht Club during the early 1900s. The Left Bank Hotel can be seen in the far left. built in 1890. So yeah, 1890, they built it up and then smashed it down. But the point is, look at the construction here. Where were the bricks coming from? This is the Swan Brewery, so this is obviously a drawing, but back in the day. And this is what it, I mean, look at the amount of red brick in this thing. It's ridiculous. It's a very big structure, and it's, like I said, it's multiple buildings. Look at this. I mean, that's exactly like what we just saw in that last picture, isn't it? It's almost exactly, I mean, it's, the other one stepped down, so it's not the same, and it was on a hill, but yeah, wow. Antiquitech, anyone? I've got points here, all these buildings, and it's just apparently been turned into a brewery by this point. Because you need a brewery that big, you know, when you've got a colony of a couple of thousand people. I mean, it's just beer. Maybe that's where Australia got its drinking problem from. Here's another shot, an actual photo. As you can see, this man here is very important. See? What? I'm standing here for the photo, hands on hips. Mr. Important. So definitely a photo opportunity. This guy's hanging out the window. Everyone's looking at the camera. Don't know what this is. Big pile of junk. We've got this big chimney. Now, I mean, what's the chimney for? I don't think you need a smokestack for a brewery. And what else did they say it was for? A timber mill and a flour mill? Don't know. But yeah, I mean, definite Tartarian architecture. I mean, just look at that. But that's what they're telling us was built for a brewery. In, you know, an outer colony of the British Empire. Yeah, 100 years ago. Here's another shot. Again, some of these photos aren't the best because they are a bit old. But you can see, you know, just dirt roads and this massive group of buildings right on the water. This is Kings Park behind. Now this bit here, again, houses. So what I was going to say before, in Perth we get so many houses like this. You know, small 2-3 bedroom red brick houses, up on foundations, normally limestone, which you can get around Perth, with wooden floors. Now, where was all the brick coming from? Have these all been built from the brick and the rubble that they found around, is what I'm thinking. Because literally in Perth, all the houses, you know, from, you know, the houses they say were built in the 1930s and 40s, you know, for returning servicemen and stuff like that, they're all the same. All single-story red brick, up on limestone foundations, wooden floors. So, yeah, is that brick because that was the material they could find? You know, that was, because that's what you use, right? You use what's easy to get when you're building a new colony, what's abundant. As you can see, it looks like they've cut down a bit of timber here, but, you know, that's not enough to even start building just these houses here. So, you know, something, you know, this story doesn't add up. This is the Swan Brewery today. Yeah, I mean, come on, it's just Tartarian as you want. Well, old world. I should really be saying old world because the further we get into this, you know, it looks like Tartaria was, you know, part of the same empire, but I guess culturally different. Is that the way to say it? Than you know, maybe Barbaria and the Americas, which may have been Mewe and the Moorish culture. So yeah, there was different. I don't know the word culture because it's a cult, but there were different, you know, societies, people with that had just different, slightly different architecture and art and ways of expression, and that's why we get all the same buildings, but we do get these different styles. Like we get the Japanese, you know, Oriental style. We get the styles that we see in European type cities, you know, with the pillars and everything, the cathedrals. And, of course, the Moorish influence, which they tell us now is Islam. The Moorish style. So there's lots of different styles, but it's all essentially the same. And all the buildings seem to essentially work the same way. Here's another old pic of Perth. Now this is Fremantle again. This is South Fremantle. As you can see now, I mean, even these, look at these kids, they're playing in the river. Why is everyone always wearing, you know, ankle to wrist clothes? Now this is Perth. Now at the moment, it's summer. For the last 6 days, it has been above 38 degrees Celsius in Perth. We had 3 days of 40 plus in a row. And I live in Perth, and that's still pretty warm, I've got to tell you. That's pretty hot. And these dudes, why is everyone wearing suits? Like in all the photos. And I mean, they would just, I would melt, literally, walking around like that in Perth. I mean, even in winter, it doesn't get that cold. But at least we've got a chemist. Yes. So here we go. Swan Brewery, the old road. You know, this is a road now, but obviously we can see this wall. Man-made wall all the way around. This is obviously turn of the century. And these massive brick buildings. Now this one here, it almost looks like it's in a bit of state of disrepair, like they're fixing it up a bit. Let's see what we can see. I mean, and look at the quality of this photo. I mean, seriously, this is another thing. Photo quality just goes up and down, and the years don't seem to make a difference. But yeah, just see how it's got a bit of rubble out the front here, and it just, these look boarded up, these windows maybe. I don't know, but that's now the left bank. Yeah, I think this bit may be gone, not sure, but look at this bank. What's going on here? This tree's been completely uprooted. And there's just this big, it's like a big washout, isn't it? Or it's just collapsed down. Interesting. So Perth from Mounts Bay Road, circa 1860. Okay, 1860, guys. So Perth, founded 1828. 32 years. Can you see the background here? Look at that. I mean, seriously, look at that. 32 years, guys. Turning up in a boat. Now, remember, they couldn't even get their ships in back then because there was a limestone wall. I'm not sure exactly when that was ripped down, but pretty sure it was more like the turn of the century than the 1830s. So they couldn't even get their big ships up here. Like, literally, they'd have to dock at Fremantle and send smaller boats, like these boats, up the river. As you can see, there's no big ships here. So yeah, this is what they're bringing stuff in on. Of course, you know, they've had to build all these piers and things. Now there should be a baths here as well. That may be it there. But yeah, they've got to come up. Then they've got to find. Obviously, they don't need to find the wood. They've got to cut it down, mill it, have all the machinery to do that, and a building to do it. And they've got to find the clay, start the industries. Same with lime and cement. You know, everything, glass, steel. You know, where were they smelting the steel? All these buildings got steel. Like, there's a bit of steel right there. 1860. So, I mean, this story is just ridiculous. Look at this. This is a big brick building. That's a big building. Of course, I'm zoomed in, so we're sort of losing a bit of sharpness, but you can just see these aren't small buildings. Like down the front here, you can see like that's like a little house, and even the thing next to it, that's quite a big building. So you can imagine how big these kind of buildings are. They're huge. Look at this thing. Big portal. 1860. So this is the thing, guys. What do you want? His story is not our story. That's just, you know, when you look at these photos, you would have to be a little bit silly not to question this, because you know, the more you look into this, the more ridiculous the story gets. Look at this, 1890. Got a couple of dudes, Laurel and Hardy here, riding along on their push bikes. Riding along on my push bike, honey. And then in the background, fully completed, Swan Brewery. Of course, no pictures exist of the construction of it, and you can see buildings all the way around. Here's our houses. This shoreline here as well. It looks like it's all been flooded over, but that is a man-made shoreline. It's actually the whole Swan River is man-made shoreline. The whole lot. No story of who did that. They don't mention that. No, don't look here. There's our swans. So there you go. Black swans. And as you see, loving it in the fresh water. Heaps of them. And yeah, apparently the whole river just used to be covered in them. But now, like I said, it's salt water and they're freshwater birds, so they have taken off to our lake system. Which, Perth has a big lake system, but it used to be a lot bigger, and so much has been filled in. They're always filling in the swampland and putting housing estates on them. So I wonder what that means. But yeah, again, fully built, huge building. Not sure of the year. I'd say 1880s-ish. Everyone, again, ankle to wrist clothes. And a nice vanilla sky. Perth to West Mount Eliza. 1890. That's been cut off. It's not 189C. Did you hear that Elon Musk had a daughter and he named her X? And the next letter was the, I'm not sure how you pronounce it, it's in the Greek alphabet, the A with the E next to it, like that they use in ether, like the A sort of sound. So it was like Zay, and, and then the last bit was A12. That's his daughter's name, Zay A12. Good on you, Elon. Okay, so 1890, Perth. Here you go. See this this building here, I believe they built. I do. But look at this big stone wall. Brick wall covered in cement. By just a little wooden house. There's enough stone in this wall to build that house. That's ridiculous. Big jetties. This is South Perth. Oh my gosh, that looks like a dome. I don't think it is. That's the old Swan Brewery. I think that's just the picture we saw where it's got that, I'm not even sure what that style's called, where they have the tin roofs with the fence on the top. But yeah, this is a ridiculous story. This is, they go, oh, we built our first house. Well, what about this wall? Are you telling me that you build a new colony and you go around and you build brick and stone walls everywhere before you get any infrastructure? Come on. 1890, again, just to show the size of this place, right on the water. And look what we have in the background. 1890. Can you see that? Look at that. 1890, guys. So what are we talking? 62 years? 62 years after the rock up with nothing. Look at these buildings. Now I'm just trying to get a perspective here, because Perth's actually more like around here. This is like South Perth. And look how built out that is. That's ridiculous. And complete vanilla skies. God, I wish I had a clearer shot of this. I don't even really know what I'm looking at. I mean, that may be Perth. I'm just trying to think of the angle that this is taken on. I mean, it may be because what I'm looking at. Where did I see it? Is it that? Because we used to have baths at Perth as well, which may be that. But I really don't know. That could be South Perth or Perth. But whatever it is, it's got way too many buildings to be explained for 1890 with the story we're given. Old Swan Brewery, 1880. Oh my God, there it is again. Okay, so horse and cart, No paved roads. Old Swan Brewery, Antiquitech. That's all gone now. And so, looking across, yeah, no, I'm pretty sure that's South Perth. That's got to be South Perth. And look at that. Look at that big building. Looks like an apartment building from today. Is that a chimney? I don't know, but these are big buildings because that's, you know, that's 2 or 3k away from this building. That's ridiculous. So there you go. And the more digging we do, you know, the more photos we're finding. It's hard to find a lot from Australia. You know, I'd love to find one of those the maps of a map of Perth, like the ones that I've seen of New York and Buffalo and that are really intricate. And show all the star forts. I'm still trying to find a star fort in Perth. I know they're here. I know where they are, but I'd love to find an old map of one. I do need to get out there too and get on the boots on the ground. I think we've looked at this before, this photo. And here we go, the old men's depot. This is where you throw the old men when they're not needed anymore. Mount Perth, 1906. So these houses, this is now a car park. But they're those old houses that are red brick. Huge brewery, you know, man-made shoreline on the river, but just a mud road. Because that's what you do. You don't worry about transporting your goods. First of all, you build a man-made wall along the whole length, and this is a big river, guys. Along the whole way, pretty much the whole thing's done. All of Perth City's done. I mean, we do have beaches, so not 100% of it's done, but most of it is. Yeah. All right, and they used to have lights on the Swan Brewery as well. So Alan Bond, I don't know if you've heard of him. He's the guy who won the America's Cup, 1983. Brought it back to Perth in 1986. We had the America's Cup off Fremantle. And so he owned the brewery at the time. It used to have a big swan on it. And it also had a pirate ship at one point. And then it got changed to Australia 2 for the America's Cup. Oh, come on. Oh, there you go, Australia 2. So that back in the 80s, Perth was just full of millionaires running around buying and selling things and just, yeah, pretty much destroying the economy, you know, including the Premier. They all got done. They're all in jail now, pretty much. Half of them are dead. But yeah, it's a pretty weird time in Perth in the 80s. But this shot, oh, look at that. It's a big ship. I didn't realise that these lights actually go back, you know, quite a while. But I couldn't find any real old ones. But we get ones like this, which is clearly an old shot. So I'm wondering, you know, did this have lights when it shouldn't have? But again, it's not the easiest city to research, old Perth. But I mean, the other thing is as soon as you look at it, the story just makes no sense at all. A ridiculousness. This says, okay, so this says 60s and 70s. It was done up like this. So, Lightworks, that would have been 70s. Oh, that's the city of Perth. Well, it was back in the 80s. It's a little bit bigger, not much bigger. And this is the Castlemaine Brewery again. We've seen this shop, but look at this one. Check this out. It's just, again, it looks like it's just dilapidated. I mean, no doubt they'll probably try and tell us this is like a construction photo. Now, I'm not sure of the year here, but looking at the photo, you know, it looks around the turn of the century. They say this was built, 1898, I think they said, or 1900. And there's a few bits of wood leaning up against it, so I'd say it's around that date, and they're going to say this is a construction photo, but it's the same thing. Everything is complete, including this wall with the arch over it. So what's this wood for? You know, that's a completed building. It's even got Antiquitech on the top. So, you know, this was already there, guys. You know, they put up like this stupid little frame here. Oh no, we're building it, see? Look at that, little wooden frame. And in the background, just houses across everywhere. It's just, you know, it's just a silly story. So I just got a couple more shots. Here it is again. Here you can see again man-made edge to the river in Fremantle. And here it is, a bit more. Oh, that's actually the same shot, is it? Maybe that's for advertising or something. It looks like they've cleaned it up a little bit, but clearly they didn't build that. You know, this in the background, yeah, I believe they built that. Swan River and East Fremantle from North Fremantle. Again, not sure of the day, but it's early. And as you can see, the whole place is completely built out. Just houses everywhere. This is the Castlemaine Brewery. This is Fremantle. Again, around the turn of the century, lots of people watching some rowing, and just this huge, massive red brick building. There it is again, and that's a good one too. Because just look how built out this is. Everywhere, houses everywhere, but it really looks like this cliff has fallen away. I mean, it's still a cliff. Well, yeah, it's pretty much a cliff. There's a few more houses, but obviously they're not too close to the edge there. But yeah, this is a story of Perth, and it just doesn't make a lot of sense. So there you go, guys. That was pretty much what I wanted to show you, is just the story of Perth. The time frames are all out of whack because they literally didn't have the materials or the industry to build this stuff when they say they built it. Now this says Hay Street. It doesn't have a date. I mean, if you look at the Garb train, when we still had trams, but look at the build out. This is probably the 1920s, you know, less than 100 years after Perth was found. This is the White House. This is the Roundhouse. The story goes with this that the prisoners built this as the first prison. And the same story with the main prison in Fremantle. Both of them built by convicts, so that they could then lock them, be locked in there. But this roundhouse actually goes underground. Has underground levels, and as you can see, there's a big tunnel down here you can get into underneath. And I mean, you can just see this wall here that's collapsed, and you can see this. I mean, does that look like the remnants of something? Like this may have gone, the whole way down at one point and been covered up. A couple of people there with their photo opportunity. But yeah, this is, they say, the first building built in Fremantle, which of course would be the prison, right? Here's an oil painting of old Perth. Again, look at the build out. You can see, turn of the century, we've got horse and carts. And just completely built out. This is, how they treated the natives. This is how they got their land. This is how they found their buildings. This is how they got the Freemasonry, by treating people like this. And what I find interesting about this photo is, look at this guy. He's a Noongar. And when I say Noongar, Noongar is the tribe, the traditional tribe from the Perth area. So I'm assuming these are all Noongars. But this guy, he's chained up his own people. And you see that these guys don't look like they're very well fed either. And he's just standing there in his, invader clothes with his gun saying, look how cool I am. And of course, this whole scenario with these, loincloths and stuff they put on them, I'll have to do a video on it, but there's so many photos. It's a photo opportunity. It's not real. That's not real. I mean, them in chains as prisoners with everything stolen is real, but the way they dress them up as these, savages, is not real, guys. It's all made up. And here's a shot again. This is actually 1860s, I believe it was marked. And look, 2-story houses and stuff all up the road, brick houses. Again, these wooden houses, no worries. These things, not sure. And the fences. Actually, this was early. I'm just trying to think of the date. I will have to, I'm not sure what page I got it from, but it was actually very early. like 1830s, because I remember thinking these wooden fences don't look new. And fences everywhere. You know, new colony, why would you be putting up fences before you're building houses? And you got streets, and it's just a weird picture for, 12 years after Perth is found. You think they'd just be trying to build it if there was nothing here. And this is just a shot I found. This is an early map, 1830. And again, improvements to the Swan River navigation. This is our Swan River. And also, Perth City is built on one of these, I'm not sure what I'm calling them. Let's call them an OM symbol, these U-shaped symbols that you find in all the star cities. We've got one. We've got an island here. This is an island. A few more little islands through there. But 1830, guys, they say Perth, what was it? Founded 1828. Look at this map. Seriously? Why would they be mapping this out within 2 years of founding it? Look what we've got here. Public Records Reserve, Perth Station. Government House, that's definitely where Government House is. That's still there. Oh, look, that's the Baths. That's the Baths. That's definitely Barrack Street. That's still Barrack Street. That's a church. That's still there. So, they're just marking out where stuff is. But they put this map, oh no, that's where we were going to build it. Yeah, no, it's already there. I believe that's a church as well. There's quite a few churches. There's also down across the road. Yeah, so that'd be about there. Got Town Hall here. All this stuff built in, between 2 and 12 years after they rocked up. They couldn't even get a ship in here. And they're making all these grand plans to sell this land. I don't know. What do you think, guys? Does any of this make sense at all to you? Let me know in the comments. So thanks for spending some time with me. I hope you enjoyed that one. And of course, a big thank you to everyone who supports me, my work, and this channel. I really do appreciate it. Obviously, this channel is heavily shadow banned, so if you can share this material out, it does definitely help to get the information out there. And I also appreciate all your likes, and hit the bell button so that you'll be notified of future uploads. And of course, a big thank you to everyone who does support this channel financially through Patreon and PayPal and my merch store. I really do appreciate it, as this is pretty much my only income at the moment. I did get Roned. COVID-19! COVID-19!
How dare you!
So yeah, I do really, really appreciate you all. I'm going to start working on a lot more content, get some more early bird content out for my, people who are helping me financially. And, but everything I make will eventually end up as free content, because I believe everyone, should have access to this information. So yeah, big thank you to you all. Welcome to the new age, 2021. Let's make it awesome. Time for us to take back control from the so-called controllers. And yes, have a spectacular day. And I'll talk to you all on the next upload. Bye for now.